The night I realized my marriage was a financial crime scene, I was sitting cross-legged on the bathroom floor, with a migraine so bad I could barely see straight. It was a Tuesday in late September. I had come home 4 hours early from work, taken 2 Excedrin, and was about to lie down when I heard my husband on a phone call in his office at the end of the hall. The door wasn't fully closed, I wasn't trying to listen. But then I heard him say my name in a tone I had never heard from him before, flat, clinical, like he was discussing a line item in a budget report. "Lydia has no idea how any of this works," he said. "She's good with computers, sure, but the estate stuff is way over her head. Once probate clears in November, we move everything before she can figure out what she's signing." I stopped breathing. There was a pause, then his voice again. "Cade, just make sure the account is ready. I need a clean wire with no flag. She trusts me completely. This is going to be the easiest thing we've ever done." I pressed my back against the hallway wall. My hands were ice cold. The migraine was completely gone. "My name is Lydia. I'm 28 years old, and I am a senior cybersecurity analyst for a financial technology firm in Austin, Texas. I spend my days hunting invisible crimes, tracking fraudulent wire transfers, mapping digital breadcrumbs through shell accounts, exposing the kind of people who genuinely believe they are too clever to get caught. I had built an entire career finding exactly the kind of scheme my husband had just outlined on a Tuesday evening while I stood 12 feet away in the hall. I stayed in that hallway for a full minute and felt something strange happen inside me. The part of me that had loved Ryan Hargrove for 4 years went very quiet. What filled the space instead was something I recognized from work. It was the cold, precise focus that comes right before I start building a case. Before I go any further, tell me where you're watching from, drop it in the comments below, and if you've ever had to outthink someone who was supposed to protect you, hit like and subscribe to Bunny Revenge. You're going to want to stay for how this ends. I need you to understand who Ryan was. When we met, he was charming in the practical, easy way that contractors can be, confident with his hands, competent, never at a loss for what to say in a room. He ran a small home renovation business in South Austin and talked constantly about expanding into commercial real estate. I was finishing my master's degree in information security at UT. We were good together in the way that two people are good together when neither of them has been tested yet. My aunt passed away 14 months into our marriage. She had lived alone in a modest house in Colorado Springs for 30 years, never spent anything, never mentioned to anyone that she had money. She left me her estate. By the time probate finished processing, it came to $412,000. Ryan knew about it, of course he did. What I didn't know was what that number looked like to a man whose business was quietly drowning in debt. That night, after I heard the call, I did not cry. I did not go in there and throw open that door. I walked back to the bedroom, lay down with a cold washcloth over my eyes, and waited for him to come check on me. He did about 20 minutes later, carrying a glass of water and wearing the face he always wore. The easy, unconcerned face of a man who believed the world was operating exactly as he intended. "Feeling any better?" he asked, setting the glass on my nightstand. "A little," I said. "I just need to sleep it off." He kissed my forehead and went back to watch television, and I lay in the dark and made a list in my head. The next morning, I started auditing my own marriage. Ryan leaves at 7 on Wednesdays to meet job site crews. I had approximately 9 hours and I used every one of them. The first thing I did was log into our joint checking account through our bank's back-end portal. I had set up the household financial monitoring system myself 2 years ago, which meant I had administrator access Ryan never thought to use. What I found in the transaction history made my stomach drop. Over the past 18 months, there had been 73 withdrawals, each one between $200 and $1,800. Each one transferred to an account ending in the same 4 digits. None of them appeared in our shared expense spreadsheet. The total came to just over $41,000. $41,000, moved in small enough increments to avoid triggering automated bank fraud alerts. It was a structuring pattern. I had written a white paper on this exact technique the previous spring. I took screenshots and saved them to an encrypted drive I kept in my work bag. Then I went to the filing cabinet in the spare room where we kept important documents. Ryan had always managed the physical paperwork, taxes, insurance, the mortgage. I had let him because I handled the digital side and it seemed like a fair division. Looking back now, I understand exactly why he preferred that arrangement. In a manila folder labeled Estate Hargrove, a folder I had never seen before, filed behind our car insurance documents, I found copies of my aunt's probate paperwork. Someone had filled in a form requesting a wire transfer of the inheritance funds to an account I didn't recognize. On the signature line, my name was signed in handwriting that was almost mine but not quite. The letters were a little too upright. My real signature has a slight leftward lean from years of writing fast on deadline. Someone had practiced my signature, they just hadn't practiced quite enough. I photographed every page and put everything back exactly as I'd found it. The account Ryan was funneling money to, I needed to know whose name was attached to it. I ran the routing number through a database I have legitimate professional access to through my firm. The account belonged to a single-member LLC registered in Nevada. The registered agent was listed as Bascom Financial Consulting, at an address in Henderson that turned out to be a UPS store. I ran that name through court records. 3 years ago, the same man had been named in a civil fraud suit in Maricopa County, settled quietly out of court. One of the plaintiffs was a woman who claimed he had helped her ex-husband move marital assets before their divorce was finalized. Ryan hadn't improvised this, he had hired a professional. That evening, I set up a passive network monitor on our home router. Ryan would never notice. He genuinely did not know what a packet capture file was. Every device connected to our Wi-Fi would now log its outbound traffic to a silent folder on my work server. Legal gray area, I know, but I wasn't going to court yet. I was building a map. 3 days later, I had the rest of what I needed. On Thursday night, my mother-in-law called Ryan while he was in the garage. He thought I was upstairs in a work call with my headphones in. He was partly right. I was on a work call, but I had also just gotten a notification that his phone had connected to our home network, and I was already recording. I listened to that recording in the dark that same night. She filed an extension on the probate, my mother-in-law said. Her voice was sharp and impatient in the way it always got when things weren't moving fast enough for her. She had never particularly warmed to me. I was too direct, too unimpressed by her opinions on how a home should be run. That gives you maybe 6 more weeks. Bascom says if the transfer request goes in before the final court date, it's clean. She won't even know until the estate is already closed. I know, Mom, Ryan said. He sounded tired, not guilty, just tired like a man managing a complicated project that had gone slightly over schedule. You need to take her somewhere with no cell signal, a long weekend. Cade has a cabin up near Fredericksburg. No Wi-Fi, no reception. You get her there, Bascom submits the wire on Friday afternoon, and by Monday morning, the money is already moving. Even if she figures it out eventually, reversing a completed international wire is nearly impossible. They know that. International. The money was going international. That changed the entire legal picture. That made it a federal crime under the wire fraud statute. My mother-in-law kept talking. Ryan, this woman is going to have $400,000 and no idea how to protect it. It belongs in this family. You've built your whole life around being a good husband to her. You deserve to be compensated for that. Compensated for being my husband, as if our marriage was a labor contract and my dead aunt's life savings were the final invoice. I did not sleep that night. I spent 6 hours building the clearest, most airtight evidence file I had ever assembled, and I have helped put actual federal criminals in actual federal prison. I organized the bank transfer recs by date. I cross-referenced the Bascom LLC against Rachen's call logs. I attached the forged signature document alongside a notarized sample of my real signature from a document I'd signed 2 years prior. I flagged the international wire as a potential violation of the Bank Secrecy Act and the federal wire fraud statute. Then I packaged all of it and sent it to a contact at the FBI's San Antonio field office. Agent Torres had worked 2 of my firm's referral cases. Both ended in convictions. When I called her at 8 the following morning, she picked up on the second ring. Lydia, she said, what do you have? Wire fraud, I said, interstate and international, forged documents, and I have audio. A pause. Send me everything, I'll call you back in an hour. She called back in 45 minutes. In the meantime, Ryan came into my home office and kissed me on the cheek. Hey, he said, what do you think about a long weekend? Cade offered us his cabin up in Fredericksburg. No Wi-Fi, no distractions, just us. I looked up at him over my laptop screen. He had the face of a man who had never once doubted that he was the smartest person in any room he walked into. That sounds really nice, I said. I could use a break. He smiled and went back to the kitchen. I smiled too, but mine had a different quality to it entirely. The weekend happened exactly as my mother-in-law had planned. We drove up to the hill country on Friday afternoon. The cabin was cute in the way that places decorated by someone else always feel slightly wrong. Ryan grilled steaks, opened a bottle of wine he'd been saving, and was warm and attentive in a way that would have moved me 4 years ago. What he didn't know was that before we left Austin, I had contacted the estate attorney handling my aunt's probate and informed her that any transfer request submitted under my name was fraudulent. I sent her the forged signature for comparison. She flagged the account immediately. What he also didn't know was that Agent Torres already had a warrant. And what he absolutely did not know was that the Wi-Fi-free cabin had a cellular booster Cade had installed in the crawl space, not visible from the main room, that I had found the moment we walked in, while Ryan was unloading the car. I spent 20 minutes in the bathroom connecting to a thin signal and confirming with Agent Torres that everything was in position. On Saturday morning, Ryan walked down to the creek to call his brother, thinking I was still asleep. I was sitting in our car with the window cracked, close enough to hear. "Bascom submitted this morning," Cade said. I could hear the satisfaction in his voice even at that distance. "Friday afternoon, just like we planned. By Monday it should clear. Lydia's too busy with her little computer job to notice before then." Ryan laughed. Short, dismissive. "She's going to lose her mind when she finds out, but what's she going to do? Money's already gone." "You've got the divorce papers ready?" "Filed them remotely yesterday. She doesn't know yet. By the time we get back Sunday, she'll come home to a process server." I sat in that car for a long moment after the call ended. He had already filed for divorce. He had timed everything, the cabin, the forged wire transfer, the divorce papers, to land simultaneously while I was isolated with no way to respond. He planned to hand me a bomb while I was standing still. I walked back into the cabin and made breakfast like I hadn't heard a single word. Sunday afternoon we drove back to Austin. The process server was waiting on our front steps just as Ryan had arranged. I watched his face as we pulled into the driveway, and he spotted the man standing there with a manila envelope. Something moved across my husband's expression. The beginning of relief, I think. The relief of a man who believes he has successfully detonated something from a safe distance. He didn't notice the 2 additional vehicles parked down the street. When we stepped out of the car, Agent Torres walked towards from behind a dark sedan, badge out. Ryan looked at her, then at the badge, then at the 2 additional agents fanning out behind her. "Ryan Hargrove," she said, "we have a federal warrant for your arrest on charges of wire fraud, conspiracy to commit financial fraud, and forgery. You have the right to remain silent." I watched my husband's face process what was happening. The ease drained out of it in real time. What was left looked nothing like the man I married. "Lydia," he said. He turned to me. His voice had a sound I had never heard from him before, something small and frightened, and entirely too late. I didn't say a word. I just stepped aside and let Agent Torres do her job. Cade was arrested at his home that same afternoon. My mother-in-law was brought in for questioning and later charged as a co-conspirator. Bascom, the financial consultant from Henderson, had his licenses suspended pending criminal investigation, and the international account he'd been routing money toward was frozen before a single cent cleared. The estate transfer was reversed. Every dollar of my inheritance was returned to the probate account within 10 business days. I filed a counterclaim in the divorce. My attorney, a very calm woman who had been doing financial fraud cases for 20 years, explained Ryan's situation to me in simple terms. "He committed federal crimes to steal money that was largely going to be yours in the divorce anyway," she said. "Texas is a community property state. He would have received a significant portion through a standard settlement." She paused. "He is not a particularly bright man." That was honestly the part that stayed with me the longest. Not the 4 years, not his mother sitting across from me at Thanksgiving dinner, knowing exactly what her sons were planning the whole time. The part that lingered was how unnecessary all of it was. He had a legal path to a portion of that money and he threw it away, and then some, for a plan he could have sketched on the back of a receipt. 7 months later, I closed on a small house in East Austin. I paid cash. It's mine, not ours, not subject to negotiation or anyone else's signature. I painted the kitchen the color I wanted and didn't ask anyone's opinion. I set my own router password for the first time in 4 years and laughed at myself a little for how much that small thing mattered. Ryan is awaiting federal trial. His mother took a plea deal. Cade is cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for reduced charges, which means he is currently spending his days being extremely helpful to the people trying to convict his own brother. I will be honest with you, that detail gives me more satisfaction than I would like to admit. People ask me sometimes if I was scared during those weeks. The honest answer is no. What I felt was something I can only describe as extreme clarity, the kind that arrives when you stop trying to make sense of what someone is doing to you and start focusing on what you are going to do about it. The people who tried to take from me forgot something important. They forgot that I spend every working day inside the digital lives of people who are convinced they are invisible. I know how money hides, I know where trust gets exploited, and where paper trails double back on themselves. I know what a forged signature looks like next to a real one, and I know how to call the right federal agent at 8 in the morning and have her call back in 45 minutes. They thought they were stealing from a woman who trusted too much. They were actually handing evidence to someone who trusted exactly enough. And not one bit more. If this story resonated with you, or if you've ever had to fight back against someone who mistook your love for a vulnerability, I want to hear from you in the comments. You are not alone, and you are far more powerful than they want you to believe. Like this video, subscribe to Bunny Revenge, and share it with someone who needs that reminder today.